So let's kind of kick this off with this idea of the basics, Debbie. When we say that in real estate, very specifically luxury real estate, meaning just a higher price point and different crowd, what does that mean to you?
Connections.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so much of the noise that sometimes goes on in the lower price points of the gadgets and the this and the that you can buy and try and do, it really doesn't always enter that luxury space because you're dealing with a much more discerning consumer. And the luxury agents know that, these are people that go to five-star hotels. These may be people that have private jets. I mean, these are people that are going to expect the highest level of service, and it's going to need to be about that personal connection.
Wow, that's you said a lot there. It's a really interesting thing when you think about the ways that real estate professionals are compared. They're not compared to other real estate professionals in the luxury market. They're compared to that that visit they had at the Four Seasons or the Ritz-Carlton or the service that they received from the private jet folks.
Right. And when I say connections, though, too, I should probably clarify, because as you know, we have the pleasure here and the opportunity to really work with some of the best in the nation and people like Ernie Carswell, who you've had a chance to get to know at our recent event, who's Katy Perry and Fergie's real estate agent, just to name a few. Many he can't name because of confidentiality agreements. And one of the things that Ernie shared with me, it is much like a five-star hotel. Well, they will treat you well. There's also that respect, right? They're not overly familiar. They're only as friendly as you would like them to be. And I think so when a luxury agent is approaching their client base, they don't want to be overly familiar, because in many cases, those clients will treat them much like they would any other service provider, right? But the connection really is how you get the business, who you know, how often you're out there in your community, where are you going and being seen where your ideal client would be. So it's really a very social business typically.
So one of the things that when we talk about this idea of connecting and networking, networking is one of those overused terms, frankly.
Right.
Because everyone seems to network, but few do it well.
Mm-hmm.
So if we were to kind of take a deeper dive on the idea of making connections and making them matter, how do you coach folks on this?
Well, it's actually a very interesting eye-opener, I guess, for me. Last Monday, I was flown in by Coldwell Banker to speak to the luxury agents in Cabo San Lucas. So in Mexico, they don't have the tools and resources that we have in the States for buying data and accessing tax records.
Heck, not even an MLS.
They barely have an MLS, and the direct mail is a joke because it never goes anywhere. So it's very different. And yet these luxury agents thrive. And the way that they thrive is the way that many of the luxury agents that we coach do, in that they identify things that they are truly interested in and passionate about. So maybe it's the arts, maybe it's culinary, like the culinary events that are happening at the hotels, or like you think about the Sundance Film Festival, or some of the things that go on in different communities in the higher end markets, and they actually care about those activities. So when they show up and they participate, it seems real, right?
Because
they're not
it is.
fake, they're not phony. And of course, when you're there, you're not going to be able to, in Mexico, they actually told me we have a thing that we leave business at the door, which is very common in luxury, some of these opportunities. So how then do you bridge the gap on that conversation to get those people to bring up real estate so that you're not the one, and we can talk about that later, but it's finding groups. In fact, they shared with me that their goal is 2 to 3 groups a week. It could be a birthday party, a wedding, or one of those events. It could be church, even a church event where they're very involved, but they purposefully put themselves in front of 2 or 3 groups a week. And then they book 2 or 3 coffees, lunches, or cocktails a week with someone who would be an advocate, a connector, someone who might be a joint venture partner who would have their ideal client in their list. And that is a good portion of their prospecting. And if you look at Ernie Carswell as an example, Ernie doesn't door knock.
Right.
Ernie doesn't cold call, doesn't work expired listings. Not that there's anything wrong with any of that. Many of our luxury agents do. He also is very connected in that social community of Beverly Hills.
Mm-hmm. And so one of the questions I get all the time and hear all the time is, yeah, but how do I start? Mm-hmm. Right? How do I begin to, let's say I like rescuing dogs, right? How do I leverage that and turn that into some of these opportunities and have these meaningful conversations? Because I think it really does boil down to what the folks said in Cabo, right? They leave business at the door.
Right. Well, it's funny. Sometimes it's just paying attention and being aware and stepping into the opportunity. I often say, anywhere there are people, there are potentially real estate leads there waiting for you, right? So if we go back to where do you start, one of my great coaches, Alyssa was a single mom. Husband took off, no money, no child support, and she's raising her children, starting out in real estate. And she's a really smart woman. And she thought, how am I going to do this? I don't have a lot of money and I don't have a lot of time. So what she did is she said, I'm going to find other women, entrepreneurs like me, who are growing and launching businesses, who also have my ideal client that they're targeting. And she gathered together a group of 7 or 8 women. And she said, we're going to get together every Tuesday morning. We're going to have breakfast. We're going to buy our own breakfast, so no cost for anyone. And we're going to talk about who have we met that we could introduce each other to? What are we doing to market and grow our business? And we're going to be just a great support to each other. And just out of that one group alone, she did like 25 transactions that year. And within 2 years, she was doing 100 units because she had gone on to get more involved in other groups. So it could be a typical kind of a B&I group or chamber of commerce. Mm-hmm. And yet what she did is she set about creating her own organic group that would therefore she's the only star in real estate in that group. But then I think also looking at your hobbies, are you into, your dog, or are you into horses, or are you into wine? Are you into art? What are you interested in? And then finding groups in your local community. Look in the newspaper, look online, Google it. Mm-hmm. All sorts of things will pop up.